With radio host Lisa Wexler. We are talking about Moody's downgrade of the state's bonds, and this is we're just talking in the commercial break, and this gets you really fired up. And bottom line is, you're saying you're pointing the finger at Governor Malloy.
Well, I am pointing the finger at Governor Malloy because he gave us the largest tax increase in history, a marginal rate of 9.6% on some people's income. And when he did that, he made the sale to us that we needed to do it to get our state finances in order, that everything was so terrible that this was the only way that we could get it done. The Moody's downgrade tells me that it's not done. It's what it ends up doing with a bond downgrade, which sounds like a boring abstract concept, is it means that it costs the state more money every time it wants to borrow from the public, which in fact means that we end up in this vicious cycle of increasing our debts in the state budget. So here's the bottom line to me. Mr. Barnes, who represents Governor Malloy, blamed Moody's. I hate when they blame the messenger, Erica. I can't stand when they do that. The message is that the state finances are not good. We have one of the worst underfunded pension and state employee obligations in the country. That's why there was a downgrade. Over the weekend, I spoke to Minority Leader John McKinney, Republican Senate Minority Leader John McKinney.
Right.
And he told me that the reason this happened was because back in June, Governor Malloy increased spending by 4.1% in a recessionary time. Instead of keeping spending stable while he had to increase taxes, he actually increased spending. He didn't make the pension reforms that were necessary. He allowed people's overtime pay, for example, to count in their base pay for a pension. And there were a bunch of other reforms, including longevity pay, that were recommended that were disregarded by the governor.
Now, back a few months ago, we were just hearing so much about all the cuts that Malloy was making.
Yes, but it turns out not to be really true, because when you blame the messenger, when you blame the ratings agency, it tells me that you are blaming the wrong person. We have to look at ourselves. In this case, Governor Malloy, he's the one that's the culprit because he's the one that pushed this budget through.
Now, we all know more people are leaving Connecticut than there are people coming to the state. This is just really bad news all around.
We have one of the highest per capita incomes in the entire country. And the census of 2010 shows that we are relatively stable for population, but we are gaining at half the rate that we should be. In other words, people are not coming to the state like you would think of because we're a rich
like we've been hoping.
state, and like we've been hoping. And one of the reasons is because we have a reputation of being very high tax state. Nobody wants that. And if we're going to have it, there should be a payoff. And right now, there's no payoff.
A reason for it.
Exactly.
All right, Lisa, thank you. And don't forget, you can listen to Lisa on the radio. She's on from 4 to 6 p.m. on WFAS, or you can head over to, of course, LisaWexler.com.
LisaWexler.com.
Thanks.
Thanks, Erica.